y'all, Dixie here. Today I want to talk to you about carrying guns or not on the Pacific Crest Trail. So whenever somebody finds out I've spent 6 months in the wilderness, they're like, oh my gosh, did you carry a gun? Unless it's here in the South, and then it's like, oh my gosh, what kind of gun did you carry? Just kidding, but kind of not. But a lot of people do ask that question, so I did want to address that. I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just going to tell you what I did and why, and what other people around me did, and then also if you're like, why on earth would anyone even think about carrying a gun on the trail? But you'd kind of like to know some information for self-protection, then we'll kind of cover that towards the end. This is not legal advice, and you need to research laws for yourself. I am presenting to you what, as I know of today, is current information, but that could change tomorrow, right? So make sure that you always look this stuff up for yourself. And if you're interested about guns on trail, but more specified towards the AT, I have done a video on that already in the past, so you can check that out. All right, so some of y'all are wondering, why on earth is she talking about taking guns on the trail? Well, to protect yourself, of course, from the biggest danger, which is Yetis. Just kidding, but most of the time folks do think about carrying a gun to protect themselves from what? Wildlife and people. There are really two types of animals that you might think about carrying a firearm to protect yourself from on the Pacific Crest Trail, and that's gonna be mountain lions and bears. Just so you have an idea of how many people statistically die each year due to bear attacks in California, Oregon, and Washington, in the last almost 200 years, so since the 1830s, 6 people have died in those 3 states total. 3 of those were in captivity, so 3 were due to bears that were like in zoos or something like that, and then the other 3 were in the wild. Of those 3 that were in the wild, 2 of them were back in the 1800s, and it was men who were hunting bears, and the 3rd one was a 4-year-old child who was, out playing outside, and a bear came up and attacked the child. So, not to make light of those 6 deaths, and again, only 3 that were in the wild, but I'm just saying that, it's not common that somebody is killed by a bear on the Pacific Crest Trail, let alone in California, Oregon, and Washington. So how many bears do hikers usually see while they're out there? I can't, answer for everybody, but me personally, while on the PCT, I saw 4 bears. 3 were cubs and 1 was a mom. Those are typically the kind of scariest situations because mothers can get aggressive over their cubs. But most of the time you see a bear, you're gonna see the rear end running off. I did have a bear bluff charge me while I was on the AT, but never had any issues like that while on the PCT, and that's really not something that's common. Next are mountain lions or cougars. Now, as long as you avoid the bars late at night, you're not gonna see any cougars. Just kidding. Mountain lions are something, that yes, you could encounter while you're out on the PCT. Not likely. Nobody that I was around, that I hiked with, that I met while on the PCT told me that they saw one. I have heard of people who see them on the PCT. With mountain lions, if you see them, they've already seen you long before. Again, you can read up, on what to do or what to expect if you do encounter a mountain lion, but just so you're familiar with the statistics, since 1890, 7 people have been killed by a mountain lion in the state of California, none in Oregon, none in Washington. Of those 7, 4 were adults and 3 were children. Some of you may be wondering why I'm pointing out, children versus adults, because, when you see a small creature, a child, the wildlife, maybe thinks that it's something else, or, is like, oh, I could take this thing on easily. It just seems more logical for why bears or mountain lions would attack a child over a grown person. One way that we can prevent really all wildlife from trying to interact with us as much while we're out there is to practice leave no trace standards. So make sure you're hanging a bear bag, try to have your camp area have as little scent as possible. Just really read up on those leave no trace standards if you're stressing out about the wildlife. The more that we learn to prevent these animals from associating us with nice tasty treats, the better off we'll all be. So if you're not protecting yourself from wildlife, you're protecting yourself from scary 2-legged wildlife, right? The people. You might find it comforting to know, though, and your parents and family, if you're thinking about doing a thru hike, that 0 people have been murdered on the PCT since its existence. But in 2016, 50 people were murdered in the city of San Diego. You really have more of a chance of being harmed approaching the southern terminus than you do actually being on the trail. So definitely, be aware when you hitchhike, again, interacting with people who are not backpacking, section hiking, day hiking, interacting with people who are not out there enjoying the wilderness is where it gets more dangerous. So when you go into town to resupply, you're really more at risk than, being hurt by somebody out on the trail. And I know everyone's gonna say, well, that's death, but what about rape, robbery, assault, all of those other crimes that could happen? Well, in researching it, I tried to find a case. I found cases of where people had been raped and they went and thru-hiked the PCT to help recover. And I found an article from last year where there was a rescue team who went in a side trail to get to the PCT to try to rescue a hiker who was dehydrated and ended up being held at gunpoint. And so they ended up having to turn around and go back out, and eventually came back with, backup. But that happened on the side trail. So, again, nobody was injured, nobody was, actually hurt or raped or robbed, and I haven't heard of any of those stories. Not saying that it doesn't happen or that it can't happen, it certainly can. When you get a group of people anywhere, anything like that can happen. But again, you're a lot more safe, statistically speaking, on the trail than you are in the towns that you're going to be resupplying in. So after reviewing all of these statistics for myself before I hiked the PCT, and after having my experience on the AT of not carrying a gun, I personally decided that it wasn't worth it to me. When I put out my video about guns on the Appalachian Trail, I had a lot of people say, well, on the AT you might not need one, but on the PCT you're definitely going to need one because it's a totally different trail. Well, yes, I agree. It is completely different in a lot of ways, but needing a gun is not one of those. I successfully completed my PCT THRU-HIKE, and at no point do I feel like a gun was necessary to do so. But I want you to understand, I'm not like an anti-gun person. I have a concealed carry permit here in Alabama. I do generally carry with me when I go places. I like to practice my Second Amendment rights. I enjoy target shooting, all of those things. So I'm not an anti-gun person sitting here saying, do not carry a gun. And again, I am not telling anybody what to do. I'm just saying that even though I do support the ownership of guns in my life, and I have them, I still decided that for me, I did not think that it was worth it to carry out on the PCT. Because of the statistics of crime and issues with wildlife and just the added weight of a pistol, it just really wasn't worth it to me. I didn't want to just give you my personal opinion though, and only what I did. So I reached out to some of my fellow PCT 2017ers and asked them, did anybody out there carry a gun with them for a section or, the whole hike? And so the first person that I spoke with was Hot Legs, and he was the fella that gave me a pack shakedown in Mount Laguna. So he went through a lot of packs with a bunch of different hikers this year, and he said that of all the hikers that he helped, go through their stuff, there were only 3 people that had guns, and all of them were very adamant about keeping them, and they did not, get rid of them at that point, and they said that they were going to continue to carry them. I did hear from a couple, so 2 thru-hikers, a guy and a girl that were hiking together, and they said that they started out both carrying. The girl had a small revolver, I'm guessing probably a .22, and the guy was carrying a Glock. If I had to guess, probably a 9mm. So they started off with them, and then after a while they just decided that they were too heavy, and they really wanted to cull some pack weight. They didn't feel like at any point they needed it. They were around enough people. They felt like they were safety in numbers, and so they decided that it just really wasn't worth it to them. And they did have a concealed carry permit in California, so they were doing it legally, but even though it was legal, they just didn't feel like they needed it. They also said that they were carrying the pistols in their pack, so it wasn't in an easily accessible area, and they just felt like if they really were in danger, how much would it really help them out? Several section hikers did comment and say that they did carry during their section hikes, but they wouldn't for a through hike. It was worth the wait to them for the short little local visits, but if they were to carry the whole shebang, mainly due to legalities and the weight of it, they wouldn't bother. So if you're sitting there saying to me right now, I don't care what you say, I'm gonna carry a gun because I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it, and I don't mind my pack weight being 100 pounds or whatever, then that's fine. That's absolutely, you do what you want to do and what makes you happy and feel safe. But something to definitely think about before you carry a gun out to the PCT is the legalities of it. So when I talk about this legal part, again, you need to make sure that you look up all the laws for yourself, but I am referencing carrying a handgun because, if you're gonna take like a rifle for hunting, that's a whole nother can of worms that I'm not getting into. I'm talking about just for personal protection, so most of the time somebody would carry with them a pistol. So I decided to try to kind of unfold this legal nightmare a little bit because there were only 3 states to look at. Well, California is a doozy. So unless you are a California resident, you cannot legally carry in California. That's just the bottom line. Even if you are a California resident, if you do not have a concealed carry permit, you cannot legally carry, whether that's open carry unloaded, open carry loaded, concealed carry, whatever. You've got to have a permit. California is a may issue state, so that means that they're not just going to say, oh yeah, this is your right, here you go, you filled out this paperwork, here's your permit. They are going to basically, from what I've read, make you justify why you want this concealed carry permit. Obviously, like I said before, that couple that was through hiking the PCT this year did get their concealed carry permit, so it's not impossible. I'm just saying that it's not necessarily super easy to get it. And again, California does not have reciprocity with any other state. They will not honor any other concealed carry permits from other states. So if you're not a California resident, you cannot through hike on the PCT the whole way with a gun legally. Now let's talk about Oregon. So Oregon is a traditional open carry state, but there are certainly some areas, some cities that you cannot open carry in. So if you decide, okay, well, in Oregon, I'm gonna at least carry my gun the whole way and I'll just open carry it. Well, when you go into town to resupply, then you may run into some issues there, and you're gonna have to look up, each city and everything if you want to carry legally. So Oregon does not have reciprocity with any other state in the US, meaning they don't honor their concealed carry permits. However, Oregon will issue non-residents a concealed carry permit, potentially, if they live in a bordering state. So you have to be a neighbor of Oregon to get a non-resident concealed carry permit. Washington, that is also a traditional open carry state, honors 9 different states concealed carry permits, so they have reciprocity with 9 other states. But the only way that you're gonna get a non-resident concealed carry permit in Washington, from what I understand, is to gain a concealed carry permit from a state that they have reciprocity with. But you have to go in person to apply for a non-resident concealed carry permit in Washington. So that's not something that, I could really look at a whole lot in detail online. So basically, it's not impossible to through hike the PCT with a firearm, legally, but you're gonna have to be a California resident who gets a non-resident concealed carry in Oregon and a non-resident concealed carry in Washington, but you can't get it from California. You'd also have to have a non-resident for another state that reciprocates with Washington. So anyway, or I guess you could conceal carry in California with your, resident concealed carry permit, and then open carry in Oregon and Washington. You just have to make sure that you're not going into cities or towns that don't allow you to open carry. And if you're a NOBO, you're going to be limiting how you get to in the trailer, because you're not going to be able to carry a gun into Canada. So you're going to have to backtrack 30 miles to Harts Pass once you finish the trail. Again, do your homework if you're going to do that, but it just is something to think about, the legal aspect of it for sure. So say you work out the legal nightmare, you've got everything ironed out, you're like, Dixie, I got this whole situation covered, I've gotten all my permits, or maybe, I don't care about the legal aspect and I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, so then you got to start thinking about what caliber do you need to take down a bear or a mountain lion if they're coming at you. And maybe you're not worried about them, you're just worried about somebody trying to kill you or rape you or harm you in some way. So is a 22 enough? Is a 9mm enough? I'm sure that, all of y'all who have decided you're carrying a gun no matter what already have your favorite pistol that you're going to carry, and you either really care about weight or you don't. But some of the section hikers that mentioned they did carry carried a Beretta Bobcat, which is a 22. There was also a 9mm Smith & Wesson M&P Shield. And then one guy said he carried a Glock 17, which is a 9mm. All right, so again, worked out the legal aspect one way or another, not asking questions. You've got your caliber picked out, you think that it's good enough for what you want to do and for how much weight it's costing you. So now where are you gonna keep it? If you are going to conceal it, which is probably the best option, because if it's illegal and you're open carrying, you're asking for trouble, because somebody's probably going to be nervous about it and they're probably going to report you, and you're probably going to have your through hike ended. So, if you're carrying it, especially illegally, you probably should not be bragging that you have it, and you should probably just not say anything. Again, not giving you legal advice, not telling you to do things illegally, just stating that be smart about whatever your decision is. So anyway, you've got it on you. So where do you put it on your body to where you can access it easily? Because if you've got a bear running at you, or a mountain lion, or, a crazy insane person, you're not going to be able to set your pack down and say, hold on a second, let me get my pistol out of here. It's in here somewhere, like Mary Poppins' bag. So you've got to, put it on your person where you can access it quickly. So that's just something else to think about, because with your hip belt and your chest strap, it's just maybe it needs to go in a fanny pack, or I don't know, something for you to think about. Even when you recognize there's a threat, are you gonna have time to draw from that perfect location and aim and fire an accurate shot in the amount of time that you need to? I don't know, that's something that you have to answer for yourself. So I'm certainly not saying don't carry. Again, if that's what makes you happy and comfortable, and you decide that that's what you want to do, just make sure that if you're going to carry a firearm, one way or the other, that you're smart with it, you're responsible with it, and that you train beforehand. If you're going to have a weapon like that, it's really something that you should be comfortable with and know what you're doing, and be honest with yourself. If you don't, then you probably shouldn't have it out there. Now, if you've decided that you are not going to carry a gun, it's just not worth it to you for whatever reason, you've decided against it, and you're like, but I still want to protect myself, then there are certainly ways that you can do so. First of all, there are safety in numbers. I'm not discouraging a solo hike. I was a solo hiker. I'm just saying that if you can be with people when you hitchhike and you are putting yourself into those more dangerous situations, or when you know that you're in bear country, then of course it's a good idea to hike with other people. Next, there's the option of pepper spray. There are some areas that have laws, so you might want to check for that, but pepper spray is good to have. You can attach it to your shoulder strap if you need to, put it in an easily accessible pocket, but again, you want these things to be accessible if you do need them. I always carried my pepper spray in my pocket while I was hitchhiking. I put my coat on no matter what the temperature was, and just have it in my hand, in my pocket, because again, that to me is the most sketchy time, is when you're climbing in a vehicle with somebody that you have no idea who they are. There's also bear spray. Bear spray is pretty heavy, and I don't know anybody who went a long ways on the PCT as a thru hiker that carried bear spray, but there's no reason that you can't if that makes you feel better. People do say that bear spray is going to be more effective on wildlife because you're going to be a much better shot with the bear spray than potentially a pistol. Also, you can carry a knife. I mean, not only might you use it for self-defense, hopefully not, and probably not, but also you gotta cut cheese. During my PCT THRU-HIKE, I carried an MT Knives Genesis, and it's just a neck knife that you can quickly draw from its sheath, so hangs around your neck, and it's got a breakaway bead in the back. But yeah, you can just snatch it down and use it whenever you need to. It's always easily accessible, and when you get to town and you want to look a little more civilized, you can just tuck it down in your shirt. Another option is an air horn, so this could startle wildlife if you're in that situation. Also, I guarantee you, if somebody's trying to mess with you and you stick an air horn up to their ear, they're probably not going to be worried about messing with you too much after that. And finally, a whistle. So I know that might sound kind of silly, like what's a whistle gonna do? But when you're constantly walking through bear country, it's not a bad idea to give the whistle a little blow just to let the bears know you're there and maybe spook them off. A lot of packs have a built-in little whistle on the chest strap. I know Ospreys do, so, but if not, you can get, I had a little orange whistle that I carried with me, and again, would just kind of blow on it whenever I was in bear country. And then also, if you're in camp and you do have an intruder, somebody trying to bust up in your tent, a lot of times, you'll be camping near other people, even if it's just one other person. So you can always use that to alert somebody, if they're nearby and maybe not right up next to you. But again, you're probably not gonna have those issues. I mean, people on the trail are so wonderful, and there is such a camaraderie between hikers. Pretty much anybody you run into out there in nature is going to be helpful if you need it. It's just like you're a family without ever even previously meeting that person. You see another hiker and you're a hiker and y'all are in it together. But the most important tool that you have with you at any given time during a thru hike is right here. This thing is not just a hat rack, and you should use it for situations that you feel like you might be in danger. Just think about things, be aware of your surroundings, trust your instincts, and you should be all right. In summary, I think that 99.9999% of thru hikers will tell you that you don't need a firearm while on the trail. But that is a personal decision that you have to make for yourself. And if you've decided you're not going to carry a gun on trail, I hope some of the other self-protection ideas are helpful. I know a lot of you probably have parents and families who are just freaking out that you want to go on this thru hike and they think you're going to be murdered or mauled by a bear. Just tell them to stop watching The Revenant and everything will be okay. Feel free to share down below in the comments section, if you do typically carry on trail or have carried on a thru hike, feel free to share your experience with that. If you know something more about the laws through California, Oregon, and Washington that I have not included, please feel free to share that. Also, if you've got alternatives to carrying a firearm on trail, you know, for people who have decided they don't want to, we'd love to hear more about that. You know, I just want this to be a community where we share information, we help each other out, and again, we're not just being negative. Because honestly, if y'all want to change somebody's mind about something, the best way to make them feel stronger about what they already think is to be hateful to them. So if you want to change people's minds and persuade them to listen to you, generally it's not by insulting them. So just remember that when you go to leave a comment below. But again, whether you carry a firearm or not out there on the PCT, just be safe, be smart, and be aware of your surroundings. And with that, we will see y'all next time.